So there are many secrets and undocumented changes in the new update 1.2 for Cyberpunk 2077, a lot of which are actually really interesting. Some of them add new functionalities that either did not work or were not implemented before, while others fix some really awesome ones that can provide you a lot of new, never seen before legendaries that you probably never had access to. So let's jump into just a few of these, and as always, if you enjoyed this video at any point, it would be super awesome if you also left a like on it. Let's start things off with a really interesting cyber upgrade that was actually accessible in the game at some point but never worked up until today, and of course I'm talking about the Optical camo. Now this was an item that was not accessible through regular means. The only way to get access to it was through modding or cheating, though up until update 1.2 it did not have a function. Well, that is no longer the case, and now it absolutely works. I believe that there's even a small upgrade to the item card, so now it does grant invisibility for 15 whole seconds on a 60-second cooldown. And I did test this in game. It absolutely works, and not just that, it also kind of envelops your character into this really awesome optical camo that kind of makes you semi-translucent. It's pretty awesome, and it also works against enemies with really great success. Now I'm not really sure if there's any vendor that sells this because I already had it on one of my cheating playthroughs on the PC, but its functionality is pretty crazy because it's so freaking OP against the AI, since they can only shoot at your last known location and they will not be able to spot you even if you get close up in their face. And again, the cooldown is pretty good. I mean, you can kind of bring it down with certain passives and abilities, but otherwise I really enjoy it. It finally works, and it does seem to be in connection to an upcoming DLC that will introduce some new items to the Ripper Dogs. So yeah, hopefully this is just one of them because it already looks really awesome. Now unfortunately not all changes were for the better. Some of them are straight up nerfs to certain ways we were using our characters before. So one of them is of course the Kenzirov plus Dodge skill that we used previously to basically cover really large distances on foot. That unfortunately has been addressed in the new update, so now if you go ahead and test it in game, it is no longer going to work. Pretty unfortunate. I really like this trick. I think that this enhanced the gameplay through a whole new level, but you know what, I get why CD Projekt Red has nerfed this. It was pretty OP and it completely removed the reason to even use vehicles altogether, so yeah, maybe it's not such a bad idea to have that removed. But coming up next, there's another really interesting change that I definitely really enjoyed, and that was the fact that now vendors in the game do sell legendary items. And not just that, at level 50 that I'm playing right now, they are not just amazing, they also have the maximum mods possible for those types of items. So if you were lacking any awesome legendaries previously, if you never got a chance to buy or unlock the ones that you can find randomly in the wild, you can just simply visit the regular old vendors, and there's really high chances for them to spawn at least a couple of really awesome legendary clothing pieces right there. Yes, it also absolutely works to advance the time 24 hours. It's going to completely reset the vendor and maybe even give you a new item instead. And I've also done some tests on the old legendary recipes which were missing after the first time you would visit those vendors, and yes, I can now confirm that these were also fixed. So if you go at a vendor now, there's a small chance for that vendor to also spawn some of these legendary recipes again, and you're gonna be able to buy them basically. So pretty awesome one. I love this new update. I got a ton of new outfits for my character simply because there's so many new item selections for me to pick of legendary quality, so definitely go ahead and check it out. Now the next bit that also got me really excited was the fact that several of the powerful legendary mods in the game have been fixed, and not just that, stacking them is also now completely going to work. So let me give you a few examples that I have right here, starting with the Deadeye, which previously did not work at all. On one of my characters I have about 44% crit chance and 168 crit damage, and watch what happens if I add this Deadeye mod right here with a +7 crit chance and +20 crit damage. By the way, this was slightly nerfed, but that's because now it also stacks with one another. So if I add it, my new crit chance is going to be 51 and my crit damage is going to be 188. So yes, it fully works. Now, I've done several other tests, including stacking two of these dead eyes. I've started with a character from about 56 crit chance and 188 in crit damage, and upon adding the second one, I got it up to 63 and 208 for both of these stats respectively. And by the way, this works with any of these. At some point, I think that I completely stacked my character with multiple of these dead eyes, bully mods, as well as Fortunas, and I had like all 6 of them stacked on 2 different items, up to 200 plus crit damage and fully reaching the 100% critical chance cap right there. So definitely worth it. I think that the builds that we created up until now are going to be even crazier now that these mods actually finally work and stack. Now, this comes in at another small little price that we have to pay, which is of course the fact that duping no longer works on both the console and the PC version that I've tested. So here was one of the tests that I did with one of these white cloaks. I was able to sell it, even entered that screen with a transparent background as we were previously, but when I go ahead and rebuy it, I can only rebuy the amount that I sold previously. So in this case, I can only rebuy one of them no matter how many times I press on the icon. So yeah, this was tested both with this as well as with the paintings that cost 4,000 euro dollars to sell, by the way. So in neither of these situations did it work anymore. I even tested it with the paintings. Now luckily I have over 3,000 of these on the PlayStation 5, as I've done this trick quite extensively previous to the update 1.2, but now if I sell one of these paintings and try to buy it back, I can only get the same amount that I sold initially. So yeah, it's pretty much gone, and say goodbye to the duping method as it were before. Now, there's many other changes that I've seen in the game in the new update. One of them, as we've talked previously, was for the control and steering, and this is actually quite a significant change right here. I did play around with it. Now, of course, this was also shown in some of the previous trailers, but steering sensitivity right now, having a slider right there helps tremendously, especially on the keyboard and mouse control, because previously I'm going to assume that the steering sensitivity was always 100, which is why the controls felt a little bit too tight, especially when trying to move into those corners, or even when trying to start from 0 to 100, for example, in a straight line. If you would press A and D just a little bit, it would make you easily lose control over your car. Now, with the steering sensitivity slider, you can now have control over that. I've tested a few of these settings, so if you go down to 50, for example, in my opinion, it's a little bit too unresponsive and your button actions take a little bit too long to register on your car, so it might make your car driving feel a little bit too sluggish. Meanwhile, personally, the sweet spot for me in sensitivity for the steering was about 80 to 85, so if you put it around these, it's going to make it responsive enough so that it responds to your button pressing on the keyboard and mouse, but not too tight or too sensitive as it was before to completely wobble the car, especially in tight situations. So that's just my opinion. I think that it's a really awesome change right here with the slider. Of course, it doesn't mean that it's perfect, but it does help quite a bit with that. Another change that I did notice with many of the vehicles in the game is now that there is a greater variety of colors. I'm pretty sure that there's even like new color combinations for certain cars, and there's definitely a lot of these that look really incredible in the new update. Like, I've seen a lot more purple cars that wasn't the case in the past for many of these vehicles, and a lot more cooler combinations for the existing ones. Now, there's many other changes in the game that I'm going to go over really quickly. One of them, I'm not really sure if this was specific to update 1.2 or a previous update, but dismantling items for some reason feels way faster and way more responsive than previously. So now it's much easier to dismantle many of these items in your inventory. Another one is for your own character's icon in the main map. Previously this was in a white color, which was really easy to lose beneath all of these other icons that are also the same color. So now this was slightly upgraded, so now it has a small little green glow right there that makes it much much easier to spot on the map for pretty much everybody, so a really big plus for me. And the final one that I want to cover is a really interesting one, because this might be tied in to a certain DLC, because that 6th slot right there in our character's attribute screen now finally has a function, sort of, as in now it is dedicated to your relic, and according to some of the recent rumors, this might be in regards to a relic kind of DLC that might add something cool to our relic capabilities. So who knows, but totally let me know down below what do you think this is going to look like when that DLC supposedly launches. But thanks so much for watching, this is it for now, and I'll see you guys in the next one.